But America should keep her mouth shut. Wherever there's a corrupt regime, as much hell as America has raised on the earth.
Dad, I've decided to surrender to the will of Allah.
Say what?
I've become a Muslim. I don't know how to thank you for sending me to D.C. I feel like I've almost become a new man.
Wait a minute, can you give me a discount on some of them bean pies?
I mean that shit, because these white folks see us as thugs. I don't care what y'all think. I don't care if you think you a lawyer, if you a man, if you an African-American, if you whatever the fuck you think you are. We thugs and niggas to these motherfuckers.
I have been on a research. Music is psychology, see? And if the music does not penetrate the heart, the soul, and the mind, and the body, then you ain't gonna feel it.
Answer is this. I call myself an African person because our people originated in Africa. So when you find African people in Jamaica, in Haiti, in Latin America, in Brazil, in various places in the world, they're still African people, even though they were born in that place. And I'm very proud of the fact that I am an African person.
I gotta say that even in the midst of all this capitalist excess, this disgusting display of conspicuous consumption, this exercise in bougie exhibitionism, it's beautiful to see.
So, brother, where your poems at? Huh? How you gonna call yourself a revolutionary and you ain't got no poems?
Peace. This is another episode of The Reasoning. My name is Maryam Azeeza Muhammad, and this is my co-host and the associate editor at Iansá Magazine, Doniven Hill-Bush. We have a very good episode planned. I think this is going to be like one of the really informative, really inspiring episodes of The Reasoning. Mind you, this is only our, what is this, Donovan, our fourth episode?
Yeah, only four times because we had half of the episodes have been the emergency live broadcast. The one from Venezuela was the first one. The one during the one for Minneapolis was the second one. Then we just had our last one. Yeah.
So this is Political Prisoners and the Price of Resistance. And like we said in our previous streams, we're having these every week, even though normally these episodes are going to be bi-weekly. So, but before we begin, we have a slew of announcements for you guys, different things that were going on. And the first thing being that we will be having, we're going to be a co-sponsor for the Imam Jamil Al-Amin celebration, which is in Fort Worth, Texas, with the Islamic Unity Center. That is the first thing we're going to be announcing. So last week when we announced it, we were just supporting it. When I spoke to the Imam Abdullah, I spoke to him about it, but then the team agreed that we needed to become an official partner. That way we could, try to direct any resources or anything going on to that masjid. They are a masjid where, even though they're a religious institution, they do honor the Black radical tradition, which is what we are about at Iansá. So this is the first part of the flyer, right? And I showed this last week, but the other part of the flyer, which I forgot to show, look how beautiful this flyer is, actually. You got everybody on it. You got Imam Warfdeen Muhammad, who, if you didn't know, I met him as a baby before the ancestors took him. I met him as a little baby. My parents never got a photo though.
But you could feel his presence. You could feel his spirit. His spirit has I don't know how to say it, but basically his spirit passed on to you. So you always gonna be carrying on his will. So.
Right. But and this is an event. This is happening on Sunday, February 15th. So from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., but I think they're an hour. Are they an hour behind us because they're in Dallas, or an hour after us?
They would be an hour behind us because Dallas is in Central Time.
Okay, got it. But this is 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time. So that's 12 p.m. to, what is that, 3 p.m.? I can't do math.
Basically.
Eastern Time. Yeah, so I'm in Philly, and Doniven is in VA, so we're not going to be able to attend. But you can attend if you are in like the Fort Worth, Texas area. Definitely check that out. And then they're also going to have spoken word poetry. They're going to have refreshments. They're going to have like a bunch of amazing things. And this is, with that being said, this is the Cash App, of course, to support the masjid. They have Zelle and Cash App. And then also, I need to start saving their website link so I can put it in the chat, to be honest, because my God. But they're doing some amazing work out there, and right now they need resources. They're trying to, of course, keep the masjid running on top of doing just a host of things. But this is the link. Also, if anyone wants to visit the website. But then the other thing, and I was going to say, you know what, maybe we should go back and forth between the announcements, because I have a few things to announce, and so does Doniven. So Doniven, if you wanted to do the next announcement on your end.
Yeah, I can go ahead and share my screen. This is just one brief announcement, but because they're a member org of the DC Black Alliance for Peace, they're part of our citywide alliance. I want to give a shout out to the Malcolm X grassroots movement in Washington D.C. Can you see my screen? Is everything visible?
Okay, let me see if I can. Where I was gonna view. Where is it? Okay, got it. Okay, I see it.
Okay, you can see it. Perfect. And it's for a similar theme as well. Like it says on their Instagram, please follow them at MXGMDC. They say they joyfully invite us to join the DC chapter of the MXGM movement, as well as the Free Vaughn 17 in the DMV Palestinian Youth Movement this Saturday, February 14th, from 2 to 4 p.m. For a People's Assembly on the State of Political Prisoners at the Black Workers Wellness Center. For those who are familiar with the DC area, that is just across from Anacostia Station on the Green Line. They're going to be discussing the state of politicized prisoners and engage in collective strategies to free them all on Lover's Day, aka Valentine's Day. So bring a partner if you want to as well. So both a happy couple can learn about the ways in which we can support our political prisoners, free them all, and achieve Black liberation. So again, it is this Saturday, February 14th, 2026. It'll be at the Black Workers Wellness Center, which is again right across from Anacostia Station. Shout out to our comrades with the Malcolm X grassroots movement, and shout out to the Black Alliance for Peace, as they're one of our member orgs. Major shout out to them as well. Stay tuned to the reasonings for more announcements for the Black Alliance for Peace and all of our member orgs in the citywide alliance. So please show up, bring your partner, because there's nothing that shows. There's not a better way to show love than to love revolution. So,
I was gonna say there's no love like revolutionary love.
There's no love like revolutionary love.
And also, this is just me going out on a tangent. Have you ever realized a lot of the best revolutionaries in history, their wives were named Maryam? Kwame Ture and Maryam Makeba. Thomas Sankara and Maryam Sankara. Just putting that out there.
She's stating her case, y'all. But nah.
Yeah, we got some revolutionary stuff going on. And speaking of that, once again, I announced this on the previous stream we had last week. But we are doing, in support of the African People's Socialist Party's plenary, which is April 17th through the 19th in St. Louis, Missouri. So there is a virtual option. Obviously, you can sign up at apspplenary.org. That's where you can register, but I will be going in person because this is my organization. I'm a member of the African People's Socialist Party, but the theme is this time till it's won. Power is power in our own hands. It's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system. And I think the what we do at Iansá though is, even though, we're not all African People's Socialist Party members, I think a lot of our work reflects that it's not just Trump, it is the entire damn system, because as you know, people will have you thinking if you can put the correct colonial party in then you can get some liberation. Then you can find out maybe it's not the whole damn system. Maybe it's just one part of it. But no, it's the entire system. It's the entire society. The primary contradiction is colonialism. So I'm putting this in the not the group chat, this in the stream right now, just in case anyone wants to see it. And this is the other, and I'll read this again. I read it last time, but still relevant. In every corner of the world, African people are rising up to reclaim our lives, our land, and our future. The deepening crisis of imperialism is not the result of one politician or one administration. It is the inevitable collapse of the entire colonial system. This is our moment to get organized, to build power in our hands, and to take back everything stolen from us. The 2026 African People's Socialist Party plenary is a call to action for African workers, poor and oppressed people everywhere who refuse to live under colonial domination. Together, we are building a revolutionary movement that will overturn this parasitic system and bring about a future where African people are free and self-determining. And with that, I will say, uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. So, and also if you have any other questions about the plenary, I'm very sure all of you have. You can DM any of the Iansá accounts because I run those, but also you can DM me at Oily Eyelids on my Twitter or at Neptune's Negress on my Instagram if you have any questions about just the plenary, about how you might get there, because we're trying to organize. What are we trying to organize? We're also trying to strategically organize travel and things of that nature. So anything, if you guys can always DM me. And all right, so our guest isn't here yet, but what I'm going to do though is we're going to briefly discuss, just in general, Doniven and I are going to talk about the topic today, which is political prisoners. And one thing I feel like we should talk about because well, I was gonna say, how do you want to start this? Because I think one of the main things about political prisoners is that the colonial system always has a way of, what is the words I'm looking for? They like to make examples out of people. So if you're a revolutionary and they can't kill you like they did Fred Hampton or Malcolm X, they'll try to lock you up for a very long time, like Mumia, like, rest in power, Imam Jamil. They'll try to, take you down and essentially, because if nothing is worse, what's worse is being in prison. So that's something that I think is very important. And we have a lot of different political prisoner cases that really get swept under the rug, especially those of Black and brown people. And I know everything that went on within the last year and a half, people are talking about, for example, Luigi Mangione. But we have people who 30, 40 years, they've been locked up. And I think one of the things that people found outrageous within the last 1 to 2 years is the how people have swept up the Free Luigi campaign, the Free Luigi everything. And people haven't really rallied around, people from the Black Liberation Army are in prison, people from MOVE are in prison, people from the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. These are people who have been in prison for a long, long time.
And finish your point.
No, I was gonna say, like, that's something that's rather really important. But Doniven, what were you gonna say?
I'll even add like a recent situation. Like Rodney Hinton is still like locked up. Like people were bringing up Rodney Hinton's name because everyone wanted to focus on Luigi because Luigi fits this idea of like someone we can rally behind. They are basically the conventionally attractive white man. They're Ivy League educated and all these things too. So it's a lot easier. It's a lot more comfortable for the vast majority of the population to rally behind a Luigi. No disrespect to Luigi. No, so it's not saying that we shouldn't try to make sure that he can at least experience as much freedom as possible. However, we have to acknowledge the fact that there is a reason why there would be more public coverage and even more movement coverage on Luigi than there would be of Rodney Hinton. Because Rodney Hinton's case is a lot more uncomfortable for a lot of folks. Instead of just sitting down letting the pigs get away with killing his son, he took matters into his own hands. Like I know y'all know the iconic little clip that was around last year. He's just staring down a whole line of pigs, just a factory of pork, just trying to stare him down, and bro is walking in his head held high. That's an image of someone who is uncompromising. He knew exactly what he had to do, and you can throw the label of a political prisoner on this man because we haven't heard of him since. And that's the big thing that even that Maryam was talking about with political prisoners. What was alluding to was that what makes the fight for political prisoners so important is that it is so easy for folks to forget that there are still people in the struggle that are behind bars or that are fighting with the struggle behind bars. Their analysis is just as important as your favorite scholar in the ivory tower, your favorite career activist, even though most of them will turn out to be sellouts. Many of them will turn out to be sellouts. They're just as important, if not more important, because they're seeing the empire from its most honest location, which is the prison cell. The only place, according to the Constitution, where it is legal to practice slavery behind those bars.
And well, I want to say, so our guest we have tonight, he wrote an amazing article about the ICCA, which I knew about them transporting prisoners across state lines, but I didn't know about, the specifics behind it. So I'm going to welcome to the stream our guest, Haki Kweli Shakur. And I was going to say, comrade, people know you from the magazine because you've published a few different things, but I was going to say, can you reintroduce yourself for people who don't know you and the work that you do?
Yeah, free the land. You can hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, free the land.
Oh, okay. This microphone was tripping. But no, my name is Haki Shakur, national spokesperson for the August 3rd Collective of the New African Independence Movement. I'm also the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of the PGRNA, the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa. I do a lot of work with a lot of, formations and organizations within the New African Independence Movement across the board. But some of my primary work also deals with the history. So I'm also a historian, New African historian, trying to keep the history of the PGRNA and New African Independence Movement history, in the forefront of our movement and stuff like that for educational purposes and things of that nature. But my primary work is with political prisoners of war. I've worked with several organizations, the Jericho Movement, Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, George Jackson University, which is in a rebuilding stage at this point. They was very focal on the West Coast. So I do a lot of work with a lot of those political prisoners out there on the West Coast who's keeping up the legacy of George Jackson and the Black Guerrilla family, a lot of those elders and freedom fighters who are actually still incarcerated till this day, political prisoners on the West Coast. So that's a little bit of my background.
Doesn't know Haki. Haki's like an amazing, like he said, he's like a wealth of knowledge, anything relating to like the Black Liberation Army, like power movement, like I said, the Republic of New Africa, like he's your person. And every time he writes something for Iansá, I learn a bunch of new information that I never would have otherwise known, because like this stuff isn't stuff that's included in history books. They barely want to teach you about like Malcolm X and Martin King Jr. and like basic like aspects of Black history. So they're damn sure not telling you about Imari Obadeli. They're not telling you about Queen Mother Moore. They're not telling you about any of those names. But Taki just explained he does a lot of work with political prisoners. And we're going to pull up Haki's article on the stream. Of course, we're going to try and go through it. But I was going to say, he wrote, like I said, this article about a compact contract agreement, which, as I said, I didn't know was a thing until the 24 hours. And this is basically a way to literally traffic just in a modern day slavery, trafficked prisoners across state lines, and it's taking them from their resources, their lawyers, their friends, their families. But I was going to say, comrade, you are involved in a few different freedom campaigns, and I wanted you to, if you could, to talk about some of the freedom campaigns that you've been involved in and are currently involved in.
Yeah, like you said, I've been in several freedom campaigns over the years. But the journey with, joining these freedom campaigns and being a part of those freedom campaigns started back in the historic Jericho 98 movement. If people don't know who the Jericho 98 movement is, I suggest you do your research on that as well, because this is really when the whole struggle for political prisoners and prisoners of war really took a step forward in bringing awareness to all these freedom fighters that people, basically kind of like forgot about to a certain degree or did not know about. Back then during the 90s when we didn't have social media and all these technological media advances that we have today in 2026. So I would say that my journey started that. And two of those individuals that started the Jericho movement was Safia Bukhari and Baba Jalil Mutakin. So some of those freedom fighters, along with my mentor, Dr. Matulu Shakur, is where I started to begin and started to do my work and join the movement and freedom campaigns for many of these political prisoners. But specifically with Dr. Matulu Shakur, in the early 2000s is when I joined the first freedom campaign that I would actually, do a lot of work with. Then was Dr. Matulu Shakur, and then my other comrade, my brother, ancestor as well, Sanyika Shakur, aka Monster Cody. I started to be like the spearhead of his freedom campaign when I became a member of the August 3rd Collective in the early 2000s. The beginning of the 2010s is when I took the lead on his campaign for his freedom. So yeah, Sanyika Shakur, Dr. Matulu Shakur, those are some of the individuals campaigns that I started out with. And just supporting all other freedom fighters like Mumia Abu Jamal, Herman Bell. I mean, the list goes on. But plenty of the West Coast political prisoners, freedom campaigns that people don't talk about. Individuals like Abdul Shakur, Hashima Jinsai, and a whole lot of bunch of other OGs and elders of the freedom fighting, movements out there on the West Coast. I joined a lot of those freedom campaigns. But specifically today, I'm doing a lot of work within Shaka Shakur's freedom campaign, which we have a quadrant here called the Virginia Shaka Shakur Freedom Campaign. But we're a part of a bigger campaign out of Indiana because that's where Shaka Shakur is from. This is where his case is based at in Indiana, Gary, Indiana, and Indianapolis, Indiana. So yeah, I'm a part of that campaign at the moment. Shaka Shakur's freedom campaign.
I was gonna say, for those who don't know, I was gonna say, Donovan, do you have anything you want to say before I ask my question?
Oh no, I'm listening. I am taking.
He's like, I am listening.
I'm like, wait, hold on, now, don't stop talking now. I'm trying to learn a thing or two as well, yo. And just so that everybody knows, like, as much as you might think the three of us know, we are always learning. I want to keep that in mind too. The most important part about doing revolutionary organizing is to always learn. Just when you think you know something, there's going to be something that comes out of nowhere. Now you got to learn this other thing. It's a lot of learning. It's a lot of reading, practicing, regurgitating, passing knowledge on. Knowledge is important. And I can admit too, when it came to political prisoners, I hadn't learned a lot about the movement until I moved into the DMV area.
Right.
Because my hometown, my home area, we didn't really have those discussions like Maryam talked about. We didn't even talk about we wouldn't even really talk about Malcolm X and the Black Power movement. They were just called the reverse KKK, and then boom, we was done. We was done. So whenever a conversation about political prisoners happens, I just like to sit down and listen because it's like, geez, all my favorites were political prisoners: the Huey P's, the Dr. Kings, the Malcolm X's, the Asadas, the Jalil Mutakins, the Mumia Abu Jamals. Like, shoot, and to be quite honest, we're probably gonna get into this later, but like, anybody can become a political prisoner. Anybody has, if you even voice a bit of dissent, that is justification for being a political prisoner. You saw Don Lemon's Negro liberal ass get arrested for doing some basic journalism and stuff like that. He ain't nowhere near what Shaka Shakur or anybody we mentioned is ideologically, but the fact that he dissented was enough to make him a potential political prisoner. And if this case that he's making is going where I think it's going, anybody that creates media like Iansá or like Black Power Media, Black Liberation Media, Hella Black Podcasts, you name it, y'all might become political prisoners too. That's the reality of the situation. But I'm gonna leave it up to y'all. I'm gonna be taking my little notes this entire time. That's the question.
I was gonna say for because not Sonya, Shaka's case is not as well known as like a Mumia or when Imam Jamil was alive. So can you explain, Haki, for those who don't know? And Shaka is right here. This is his photo on the screen. Can you explain like who Shaka is and his case?
Yeah, most definitely. That's a great point as well because I would just start off with Shaka like this because one of the most important things that people don't know about when it comes to political prisoners as well, they tend to forget about the politicized prisoners. And what I mean by that is the individuals who become political behind the wall. They didn't go into the penitentiary or jail or prison with this revolutionary consciousness or this political consciousness and things of that nature. So when they get behind the wall, you know what I'm saying, and they join the Black liberation movement or the nationalist movements behind the wall, a lot of these individuals tend to become, freedom fighters and revolutionaries and become politicized behind the wall. So Shaka is one of those individuals that you can look at and study and learn about politicized prisoners or politicized political prisoners because it's two different types of those politicized prisoners because some politicized prisoners they tend to bounce back and forth between, struggling with being, criminal, being caught up in the criminal element and things of that nature. So they tend to be politicized prisoners. But the politicized prisoner is an individual who's dedicated and who did that total 360 change behind the wall and dedicating his life to the movement. So you have two of those separate prisoners that you bounce back between those two. But Shaka is a politicized prisoner because he got politicized behind the wall. Following great individuals like Zolo Anzania, who was a great New African revolutionary freedom fighter, who was a part of the Indiana prison movement back in the 80s. See, when Shaka went to prison, when he first went to prison, he was young. He was around 16 years old. So he got caught up into some criminal stuff, street politics, gang politics and stuff like that. So he went to prison early, 16 years old. So once he was in the prison system, he met individuals from the New African Independence Movement, Black Liberation Army, combatants at that point in time, individuals like James Yaki Sales that y'all might know about, that goes by the name of Tibashani, Wusu, Yaki Yakubu, who wrote the great book, The New African Revolutionary Writings of Wretched of the Earth, and things of that nature. So he was a very popular individual at that point in time when Shaka went to prison. So these are his elders and the mentors that he came up under when he went to prison. So he got politicized fast as a young individual behind the wall. And he joined that movement called the Spear and Shield Collective, which was the major media, if you want to use that terminology. That was like the major media for the New African Independence Movement and the Black Liberation Army and these organizations behind the wall, along with the New African Prisoner Organization. That's something that people need to look up as well because they were very, very pivotal in the Black liberation prison struggle back in the 70s, the late 70s and the 80s. The New African Prisoners Organization that people tend to get mixed up with the New African People's Organization. We call them NAPO. Those two organizations, they get confused from time to time. But Shaka's case really took a change when he got out of prison. When he was released from prison and released back into society, he started to organize immediately when he got out of prison in the late 90s, early 2000s. is when he got out of prison. Well, before the 2000s, sometime in the 90s, he got out of prison. And so when he got out of prison, he was trying to reunite with his son, who he hasn't seen over the years and stuff like that. So when he gets out, he's getting into the community. He's doing community work. He's organizing, but he's still being, you know, under this counterintelligence, you know what I'm saying, in Indiana, because the Indiana police department and the pigs, the state of Indiana, did not like Shaka because Shaka was very, very popular in the Indiana community. At one time, they was, you know, comparing him to like Malcolm X because that's how deep he was organizing within the community, and the youth, they looked up to Shaka, you know what I'm saying? So he was transforming a lot of gang members, a lot of former, you know, youths into political revolutionaries in the street. So the police was surveilling him and constantly targeting him when he was out of prison. And so when he was out, an incident happened to his son. His son was caught up in the street politics, gang violence, and stuff like that. And one day, his son fell victim to gun violence, and his son was murdered. And so that really, really hurt Shaka. And, you know, the police wasn't really trying to help the situation. They wasn't really trying to solve the case because they didn't like Shaka, because he was this freedom fighter in the community. So they didn't really try to investigate his son's murder. So Shaka took it into his own hands and organized groups, the organizations that he was working with in the community. So they tried to solve the case on their own, you know what I'm saying? Because the police wasn't doing shit at that point in time. So he was in the streets. The police was, doing all this counterintelligence on him, trying to prevent him for, like being in the streets, trying to solve his son's murder and stuff like that. So one day, and this is one of the key elements of Shaka's case, and many other prisoners' cases as well. Shaka was going through a deep depression at that point in time, because you got to remember, this is his only child, and he was just getting to know his child when he got out of prison. So he didn't really have a real deep relationship with him, because he just got out of prison. So he was trying to get to know his son, and then bam, he's murdered. He's gone. He's taken away from Shaka. So he went into like a deep psychological depression stage at that point in time, because he's trying to solve his son case. He's still trying to organize. He's trying to be this freedom fighter, this leader in his community. So this took a toll on him. And so one day he snapped, you know what I'm saying? And, his psychological state was depleted. You know what I'm saying? He was at the end of his rope. So one day, he seen the police. He came across the police. He snapped. He let off a few shots. You know what I'm saying? He didn't shoot at the police officer. He just let off the shots out of anger. I think some of the shots may have hit some of the police vehicles and things of that nature. But the police officer, he wasn't shot. He wasn't murdered. He wasn't killed. And Shaka pulled off. You know what I'm saying? He pulled off. Next thing you know, he was captured. He was arrested for attempted murder on a police officer, which he did not try to kill no police officer. It wasn't attempted murder because he shot in the air. He didn't shoot at the police officer. But that's what they trumped the charges on because of who Shaka was at that point in time. So they locked him up for attempted murder, gave him 60 years in the Indiana State prison system. The whole time he'd been trying to appeal that and trying to get out of prison. He's been in prison for 23 years. So he's met the mandate. Let's put that out there. He's met the mandatory time that he was supposed to serve on that 60-year charge. So he was supposed to be eligible to get out. But this is when the interstate compact contract comes into the picture. They use that specific tool on Shaka, and that's when all this swapping out of prisoners started to take place. And he was swapped out by another political prisoner by the name of Kevin Rashid, that was from Virginia, that was also a political prisoner, and they shipped Shaka here to Virginia. So this is where his case is at today. He's still in prison here in Virginia in isolation and exile.
And I was going to say, like I said, Haki wrote a really good article, and I'm going to go back to showing it on the screen because we were briefly talking. But Haki wrote an amazing article specifically laying out like what exactly is the interstate compact contract agreement and what it does. And, like we're talking about this case in 2026, but like I didn't even know, like you had put a few people, like I didn't know Iansá Shakur was affected by the ICCA. Like I didn't know that at all. And it's just crazy to see that Like they can really just ship people off, and that's just like you can't do anything. And I could only imagine if I had a loved one who was locked up, and then like I'm from Connecticut, but then you hear stories about people like someone in Connecticut, they'll put them in like Oklahoma or something like that. And then it's like,
Right.
that's a long ways away to go to see, you know, your mom, your dad, whoever.
Right, and the Asada Shakur thing, and her relationship to the ICCA, you know, that again, like you said, a lot of this information was unknown. A lot of elders, a lot of people that even knew Asada, or people that followed her case, didn't even know that she was a victim of the ICCA. You know, just some of the close comrades and people that she knew that was trying to fight her case knew about it. But the new revolutionaries in the new community and the new movement of people have no idea that Asada Shakur was a victim of the ICCA. And matter of fact, that was one of the reasons why she was liberated from prison, because they were starting to do this repressive, domestic exile, switching her out to men's prisons. She was shipped to West Virginia, to a men's prison, and in domestic exile from her family, trying to break her mentally, psychologically, trying to separate her from her lawyers so she couldn't fight some of the cases that she still had. So that's why I used her as an example in the article, so it can bring more attention to people to the ICCA, so they can begin to educate themselves about the Interstate Compact Contract, which is the domestic slave trade of the 21st century and the human traffic slave trade of the 21st century.
And what's interesting is, I think about it, is like you were just talking about, it's like a modern day slave trade. And then you think about it, what would happen back in the day if there were people on a plantation and, you know, Massa was about to sell you? What would you do? You would get the fuck off the plantation and try to run your ass away. And that's like a natural thing, because they're going to separate you from your spouse, your children, if your grandparents, whoever, whatever extended family, loved ones, friends you might have, you're going to be immediately, you know, put somewhere away, and they don't know where you are. They might not ever see you. So like that was, you think about it, like that is why like they made that, escape and liberated her, because like once you're out of the hands of your loved ones, you don't even really have nobody to like advocate for you in case, you know, when you do go to these prisons and they have these horrific, awful, like terrible human rights abuses.
Right. Now, and that's why I always tell people, you got to make that connection to the transatlantic slave trade and the domestic slave trade, specifically the domestic slave trade. See, we hear a lot of stuff about the transatlantic slave trade, but we rarely hear people educating the people about the domestic slave trade that took place between the upper South states and the deeper South states. And even, the exile, like Asada Shakur case is unique because this isn't the first time that somebody been exiled outside of, out of the country. You can go back and research the history of the domestic slave trade, and you will see that this system was in place then. They were sending rebellious enslaved freedom fighters outside of the country if you was a threat to the slave plantation system. Like, they sent individuals back to Haiti, they sent individuals to Jamaica. They at some point they even sent individuals where they tried to anyway, where they sent individuals to Europe. They tried to send individuals back to Africa, but the main area that they sent individuals to was South America and the Caribbean islands. If you was a troublemaker on the plantations, or if you was an organizer on the plantation. So if you go back and study that history, then you'll start to make the connection with today's domestic slave trade, and you will actually see that nothing has changed. It's the same system. It's just modernized, and it's technological, more advanced methods to it at this point in time, because they disguise it so good, you know what I'm saying, at this point in time. And I also want to tell the viewers as well, is like, this is not just happening to political prisoners and prisoners of war. This is happening to everyday regular prisoners, but you don't hear about their cases because nobody's talking about them, nobody's advocating about it, because they just think this is something that's natural. They think it's a natural system that, okay, brother, I'm about to get shipped to North Carolina, I'm about to get shipped to Alabama, I'm about to get shipped here and there. And people don't even realize this is violating your human rights. You know what I'm saying? Because once they violate your due process, people got to remember, prisoners are humans. You have a due process. I don't care what crime you did. You can do the most horrific crime ever, but you still have human rights. You see what I'm saying? Even though we might not agree with what you did, you know what I'm saying? It could be horrific. It's even in the, where it's supposed to be in the Constitution of the empire that you have due process. You know what I'm saying? In this judicial system, this system that they claim is a democracy. But we know when it comes to New African people, Chicano people, oppressed people within the empire, you know what I'm saying? You don't you get skipped over that due process, especially black folk.
I was gonna say, what is there like? So, because I don't know how really the penal system works outside of things that I've read. Because I've been somewhat privileged to not really know anyone directly in the penal system. Mine is like extended people that I know. But when they are shipping people off, I was gonna say, because I mean, like in the case of Shaka, we know really why they transferred him. Like that's not a that's not a secret. But when you're the state, what are you telling people like when they're shipping? Like what reason are they giving for this?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that question up because okay, the excuses that the thing that they're trying to say and trying to use it, you got to go back to the origin of the interstate compact contract agreement. So the interstate compact contract agreement, some kind of form of it began in the 1930s. So relatively around that time in the 1930s, you didn't really have too many new African black people in prison at that point in time. It was more white people in prison at that point in time. So when they created this interstate compact contract agreement, it was solely based on they always come with this, okay, prisons and jails are for rehabilitation. So the interstate compact contract was established based on rehabilitation of prisoners. So it's supposed to be this good thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you know, if we do have to transfer you, we transfer you for a good reason. We're sending you to a good facility to get rehabilitated. Then we bring you back home. This is what that interstate compact contract origins is. Then we get to the 1950s, right? This is when it turns into what we know today as the interstate compact agreement we see today, because in the 1950s, now you're seeing the influctuation of new African prisoners in prison. This is when the black, you know what I'm saying, numbers start to rise. Even some of the Hispanics, even some of their community is starting to rise in the 1950s, going into the 1960s. And this is when the Black Liberation Movement, prison movement, and these movements start to spring up. First through the NOI, because we got to always put that out there. The Muslim political prisoners come first because they were the first black political prisoners that were actually being affected by this ICCA, at that point in time, because they were getting transferred, from prison to prison during the 1940s, the 50s, and then we get to the 60s, then we get the nationalist movement, then we get the Black Power movement, and now you're seeing a whole total fluctuation of prisoners starting to be shipped all over the place, specifically in California. They were shipping these individuals all back and forth, up and down the coast, you know what I'm saying, isolating them from their families, isolating them from the movement and things of that nature. So the excuse and the method that they use is that we're shipping your loved one to get rehabilitated, which we know is we know that's a lie, because prisons don't rehabilitate new African people. You know what I'm saying? We know that. Even white folks and your Hispanics, your Asian prisoners, they're not sent to prison to get rehabilitated. They're sent to prison to be made money off.
Also, I appreciate you talking about the fact that the nation had a lot of influence on political prisoners, because, and mind you, I'm biased, but a lot of people would have you think that these, like, mind you, we do have, the Black Liberation Armies and the Black Guerrilla Families and the Black Panther parties, but people really, before those groups existed, like, the closest thing they had to a strong nationalist line literally was the nation. That's like what people had. And I think because these are religious movements rather than just purely political movements, people are breezing over that because they're like, oh, well, that's religious. But like back in those days when you were having like people in the Aryan Nation, people with skinheads, like one of the few, mind you, I've never been to prison, like I said, but from what I understand, if you're a black man and you're locked up, like the nation might be like your closest like key to safety, and people are getting like stabbed, people are getting, the prison guards are collaborating with probably some of the white nationalists and all kinds of crazy things. going on like behind bars.
Yeah, the Nation of Islam was the vanguard of the prison movement first. People got to realize that it don't matter if it was a religious group, because at that point in time, anything that you did at that time, far as a threat, it's political. It's deemed political. So dealing with the white supremacist, institutions and the, the nationalist, the white nationalist institutions of the United States empire. Everything is political, even if you're a religious organization within the prison walls. So people got to realize black prisoners, the Nation of Islam was that first vanguard in the prison. So, you went to them for protection. They were your protection. You know what I'm saying, at that point in time. So you gotta, if you're gonna do the chronology of the black prison struggle, the new African revolutionary prison struggle, it begins there, because a lot of those new African freedom fighters were a part of the Nation of Islam before. A lot of them left later on. You know what I'm saying? They left, the Nation of Islam later on, but a lot of them was converted during that period of time. You know what I'm saying? That was their first step. You know what I'm saying? Becoming, politicized and revolutionized behind the wall was through the NOI.
And it's interesting because, like, for example, my dad would tell me, he was like, oh, well, I had the chance to join a gang and I had the chance to be a fruit of Islam. So I chose to be a fruit of Islam. It's interesting because, like, you talk to a lot of people, because growing up in the Nation, I knew a lot of people who were, they used to be in gangs. Like, there was a brother my family was really close to who used to be a Latin king. And, all those people discovered Islam in prison. And they always say, like, had I had this before I went to prison, I probably wouldn't have went to prison.
Right.
Yeah, but another thing I wanted to ask you about is, of course, because you have a lot of involvement in these campaigns. And like you said, you got in through Mutulu and Sanyika and things like that. But specifically because, when it comes to a lot of organizing, there are different things. Like, some people, like, I've never worked with anyone who's been, in prison. But how did you find your way specifically working in that sector of the movement? Because there's, like, so many other routes you could have took.
Because coming under the elders that I came under, they always made sure to let me know that, the first line of being a freedom fighter or being a revolutionary and being a part of the national liberation struggle or any type of movement on that level is that we never leave our comrades behind. Like, you can't call yourself a freedom fighter or a worker inside the revolutionary struggle if you're not trying to free freedom fighters. You know what I'm saying? That's people got to realize this is the beginning of a lot of people's, beginnings in any type of formation, any type of revolutionary movement at that point in time, is that the first line is to free your comrades. You know what I'm saying? Like, the elders, you know what I'm saying, they've been in prison for so long, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking about decades. We talking about cats that have been in prison almost 50 years, 40, 50 years, that were stranded. So when I came into the movement, that was the order of the day, is that, hold on, we gotta free these elders that have been in prison for over, 40 to 50 years. They dying up in there, you know what I'm saying? They getting sick. People think they forgot about them, you know what I'm saying? So when they pass that baton to you, the first thing that you learn is that we got to free our comrades. So that's how I got thrust into the movement, is knowing off top that you got to free your comrades. So that, I started working and maneuvering my way through those spaces, those circles and things of that nature, and just got in where I fit in at. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like no thing where I just was like, okay, what I'm going to do when I get into this movement. It happened organically. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what happens when you're doing the work, especially when you're trying to free your elders and trying to free your comrades that's behind the wall. This stuff rubs off naturally. So that's how I got into the prison movement and stuff like that. And the prison movement helps me with all other types of work that I do, period. Even with the, education, you know what I'm saying, the community work, the programs in the community, because a lot of these programs were continued through the prison struggle. You got comrades in the prison who created programs while incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these programs that you see outside the wall comes from political prisoners. You know what I'm saying? And people don't even know that. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day. So it's like this whole movement of outside the wall, behind the wall, we got to remember it's all interconnected. Nothing is separated. You know what I'm saying? The comrades inside the prison is going through the same brutal state oppression that we are going through from the state oppression from the system. So at the same time, it's a unified front. It's Umoja, you know what I'm saying, at the end of the day. So yeah, that's kind of like how I became active in the prison movement.
Okay, I was gonna say, Donovan, did you have any anything you wanted to?
Before I go ask my question, I want to give a quick shout out to Kai. They brought up the Black Alliance for Peace's North-South project, or people-centered human rights. We can definitely like share the actual like article later. I know we probably have some more questions regarding the Shaka article and the movement to free our political prisoners. So we can turn to that later on, because I also have a few little bits of research that I think some folks might be able to resonate with. A question I did have though is kind of actually, before I get started, keep in mind a few things that we were talking about earlier. First things first, for those who don't know, like what makes the transporting of enslaved Africans to Haiti and the Caribbean, in particular the Caribbean, so vital to understand the connection between what our current political prisoners are going through and what our ancestors have went through centuries prior, is that the average lifespan for an enslaved African in a plantation in Haiti was about 7 years.
Damn.
So you would be thrown into Haiti. You're thrown into a sugarcane plantation, which many people have talked about makes cotton plantations look like child's play. You are basically given 7 years to live. You're going to die from either the brutality from the slave master, or from the constant heat, working in the swamps, the infections that come from dehumanizing labor you're put through, and you don't even get to live past a decade. So to be transported from the southern United States, or even from parts of the north, all the way to Haiti was a death sentence. Yes. They basically were like, we can't control you anymore. There's nothing we do is gonna stop that fire, that spirit that we've always had. So we're gonna have to just work you to death, basically. Forget getting all the labor, then getting all your labor and being able to breed you and all these sort of things. We're just gonna work till you're dead. You're just gonna die. Which then also kind of go into the liberation aspect, ties into why the Haitian Revolution put so much fear into the colonizers, from not just in France, but across the Western Hemisphere. Because mind you, it was France, it was Spain, it was the U.S., it was England. It was a bunch of people coming in because they knew if they couldn't stop this enslaved population from making their own sovereign country, their nation, not necessarily empire, but their the republic is what I was looking for. Then how are they gonna stop the movements from within their own walls? That's why it was important that's why it was so important to stop the Haitian Revolution, because the implications of that throughout history, if they get an inkling that like, oh, we can be free, you can actually be free from our subjugation, that's frightening. That's frightening. And there's a reason why we don't get taught that in schools. But back to my question, actually. There's a particular symbol that's been used throughout like the movement to free our political prisoners, and that's that of the dragon. Yeah. And what's interesting for me as a kid, mind you, I grew up on Dragon Ball Z. I grew up on all these sort of things, these images of the dragon. But across the West, especially in Europe, the dragon was seen as like a ravenous beast. It was seen as a monster that you had to slay. However, across the global South, in parts of Asia, and from the African blacks, New African movements, the dragon, exactly, George Jackson. Also, highly recommend y'all read Blood in My Eye, Soul Dad Brother. There's a book that just came out from Orosami Burton, I think is his name.
What, Tip of the Spear?
Yes, that too. Highly recommend y'all read these from Ancestor George Jackson. But the dragon for these movements was seen as liberatory, seen as freeing. It was seen as the opposite of how the West views the dragon. Instead of a beast that you had to slay, the dragon was the beast that you had to release. It was almost seen as a symbol, as a culmination, because the dragon, mind you, is a culmination of different animals and just across the globe. It could be the lizard, the fish, and a few, I think, birds in some cases, a few others, and they combine them to make this one beast. It's almost as if it's the combination of different movements, of different struggles, of different political prisoners turned into one beast that you have to release out.
I didn't even think about that.
See, the little touch of racism comes in handy a couple every now and then.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask that question of why it was so important that the dragon was sort of. I don't want to demean the importance of it, but why's the dragon such an important mascot, an important symbol for these movements to free political prisoners in particular, and for liberatory struggles across the globe as a whole?
I would just say simply, when you do your history research on Ho Chi Minh, we started to see, liberation movements across the globe start to use the dragon symbol after Ho Chi Minh and those political prisoners that were in that particular struggle in Vietnam. You know what I'm saying? And the things that those political prisoners were going against, trying to free themselves and fighting back against the, oppressors back then in Vietnam, it goes back to that quote, like Ho Chi Minh said, when these prison gates open, the real dragon gonna fly out. You know what I'm saying? And so, when the individuals within the Empire of the United States of America started these prison organizations and these prison movements, they took to that Ho Chi Minh quote. That quote became the stable. It became the basis of them trying to free themselves. You know what I'm saying? And one particular group is the Black Guerrillas. You know what I'm saying? The group that people, they try to tend to leave out. When we talking about, Black liberation movement and the Black liberation struggle, a lot of people tend to leave out the Black Guerrilla family and the Black Guerrillas. You know what I'm saying? Because those individuals, they had their own particular politics. You know what I'm saying, at that point in time. And George Jackson and W.L. Nolan and Qatari Gaudin and all these great new African revolutionary nationalist freedom fighters who started the Black Guerrilla family. You know what I'm saying? They took heed to that dragon, and that dragon became their symbol. You know what I'm saying? Other Black Guerrilla family and the prison movement period, especially when George Jackson became a martyr. You know what I'm saying? Once he became a martyr, you know what I'm saying, that dragon symbol was very important because he was teaching those prisoners about the Viet Cong prisoners of war, their strategies, their tactics, and just military minded, politics. You know what I'm saying, on becoming military minded behind the prison walls. So when you see that dragon, you know what I'm saying, you're actually seeing the totality of the movement, the prison movement. It symbolized that revolutionary movement of the prison struggle within the Empire of the United States of America, specifically the Black Guerrillas. So I always try to tell people Black August, you know what I'm saying, you gotta understand Black August. We talk a lot about Black History Month, but people don't talk about Black August Month. You know what I'm saying? And Black August Month is predicated on teaching, educating, and agitating about the prison struggle, these freedom fighters, these political prisoners of war. This is why we have a initiative now that we call Black August 365. Because we want to push that Black August 365 so people can, become familiar with George and the comrades, the Soledad brothers, and all these unknown freedom fighters, because it's too many to even name from that California prison system who actually kept this struggle alive. It's pretty much dormant in certain other parts of the empire, but California is the face of the prison movement because so many comrades, so many elders have become martyrs who have died. Hugo Pinell, the list goes on, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to that whole prison movement and prison struggle. So that dragon, you know what I'm saying, and you've seen a lot of, offshoot organizations as well that tended to, take up the dragon. But all this goes back to Ho Chi Minh if you want to just, narrow it down.
Let's keep in mind too, California is broadcasted to not just us in the empire, but in the world as this progressive beacon, the home of progressivism in the United States. It's the liberal utopia.
Yeah,
it's
right.
It's the home of Hollywood, the first cinema industry juggernaut that is Hollywood. Yeah. It's the home of some of the most powerful public university system in the country, the University of California system. We talking Berkeley, UCLA, UCSD, Santa Barbara, Davis, some of the best schools. You can go to a quote unquote bottom tier UC school and can probably get a better education there than you could anywhere else in the country. It's home to so many different movements, but what makes it so sinister is that you will have the bluest state, the blue in the red, white, and blue, be home to some of the most tragic moments in history. We talking about Rodney King. We talking about the political prisoner movement, the deaths of George Jackson. We talking about the hyper surveillance of the Black Panthers. Going back,
right.
Oh, I was gonna say you were gonna say something.
I was gonna say the riots and Watts and stuff.
Riots and Watts. Shoot.
Yeah, the Watts Rebellion. Yeah.
If you want to go back to the educational part, it was Ronald Reagan at the time that he was governor of California that started the student loans that we know of today, because he understood that the vast majority of people that were getting the knowledge bases that Haki and Maryam and I have that are going to these universities and organizing, they were working class students. They're impoverished students coming to Berkeley and UCLA, et cetera, et cetera. So what did he do? He was like, if we can make these universities as economically unfeasible for most people as possible, then we can disadvantage any new members from coming into these student organizing movements. And it was that foundation to make education a privilege in the empire and not a human right that set the student loan crisis that we know of today. Because the empire knows that an educated population is a population that is extremely difficult to control. And that's why, also shout out to the No Name book club in the Hood Library down in Los Angeles, why it was so invigorating for them to have a objective specifically for political prisoners, to be able to send the book of the months to all of these Black prisoners, because they understand that just a little bit of education, you could just think twice about the system that you find yourself in. That's enough to just start a spark. That's enough to start an organization. That's why they have that there, because they know that the last people they want to get organized are those dragons in the cages. They're trapped in cages within the empire. So that'll be my little tangent.
I was gonna say one thing that's interesting to me with when I read Revolutionary Suicide a few years ago, how smart Huey P. Newton was in terms of, like, he would read law books, memorize the information, get arrested, and be like, actually, Your Honor, this is why you have to let me go. Like, people, and that's another thing, especially because we're talking about young Black men, we're talking about the carceral system. People are wildly, like, underestimating how intelligent these brothers are. And you have people like, sure, Huey P. Newton went and got a doctorate, but you got brothers who, like, Malcolm X only had, like, what, an 8th grade education. He was sitting there reading all these books, studying all this information. Mind you, like, yeah, the nation helped form him, and you know, when he got out, you know, he was with Elijah Muhammad, but when he was in prison cracking all of these books, he's getting, like, all this information. And then when he goes on the outside and he's organizing, he's able to break down, like, all of these, you know, different concepts. And like, you're comparing this to people who have, like, doctorates and masters. And this is a brother from, like, he's from, like, you know, the fields with, like,
Omaha, Nebraska.
And that's crazy to me when I think about, like, some of these people, like, they don't want people to have access to political education, because, you know, like, people will become George and Jonathan Jacksons, and they will try to break their comrades out, and they'll try to, you know, when they see what everything is, the first thing they're going to want to do is organize against it.
I want to shout out Kai. They put in reading books in full was a prerequisite for brothers and sisters and siblings prior to full development and membership into the organization. It's a must. That's huge. Like, you have Fred Hampton talks about, y'all. I know y'all love to pass around that Fred Hampton video where he talks about, like, if we don't educate, to paraphrase, if we don't educate these new incomers going into the Black Panther Party, and in no time flat, we might be able to get some Black imperialists Imperialists joining in. We see what happens now when you get a black imperialist in office. They'll lift you up as this new black hope. They'll create whole new terms around you. They'll make you black excellence and all this sort of things. Going back to what Maryam said, you'll have Malcolm, you'll have Huey. Huey did get a doctorate eventually. You'll have your Jonathan and your George Jackson. Mind you, Jonathan was doing this stuff at 16 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just out at 16 years old. I didn't even, the idea of a revolution wasn't at the forefront of my mind. I was just thinking about, okay, how am I gonna get through this activity? You know what I'm saying? How am I gonna make the state? How am I gonna get the state? It was like my time at 16, but Jonathan was ahead of his time. It was like,
yes,
how we get this revolution in. Think about if Jonathan Jackson got to be at least 20 years old, 21, 25. And something I actually before I get to my next point, I actually want to ask Haki another question too. And that's regarding the focus from a lot of folks within the new African movements, whether it be political prisoner movements, the free political prisoners, or those on the outside. There is an essential component that they expanded Marx upon. Marx believed it was the proletariat that was going to lead the revolution. Well, a lot of black revolutionaries argued that if it wasn't the colonized masters, had to expand, obviously, with the Fanons and the Césaires and the Cabrals. But when you get to George Jackson in Blood in My Eye, he talks about the essential role that the lumpen proletariat has. A lot of folks who are fighting for free political prisoners also have an analysis that emphasizes why there needs to be a strong lumpen proletariat. Whether it's George Jackson, whether it's Mutulu Shakur organizing with Tupac to try and organize these gangs because they understood. I mean, I talk about it all the time. You organize the gangs. We have black militias all over the country with firepower that can match the police. Yes. And an awareness of the neighborhood in a way that the police, that law enforcement doesn't have. And they have the connections there too to make sure shit stays tight knit. So I kind of want to ask you about the importance of the lumpen proletariat, of these people that usually in organizing spaces we disregard. And even the black folks that will join organizational spaces, they're not even talk to black folks who would be considered the lumpen proletariat, who won't even organize in the projects.
Right. That's a great point because I mean I'm a living witness of that. You know what I'm saying? Like I come straight from that. You know what I'm saying? All those elements you just mentioned, I come straight out of those elements. I know what the street lumping whole struggle is about. That's a part of me that made me who I am today. You know what I'm saying? So that element right there is the most crucial element because again, James Yaki Sales, a TV Shauna, he has a great piece that you can find on the Rebuild Collective website called, Let's Gang Up on Oppression. You know what I'm saying? And that whole article, the essay that he wrote was dedicated to the lumpen street proletariat. You know what I'm saying? On how we can organize and unify these street organizations, street tribes, street gangs, or whatever you want to call them. But people got to realize as well that a lot of those Panthers, a lot of those Black Liberation Army members, a lot of those cats ain't had no PhDs. You know what I'm saying? They didn't come from that. You know what I'm saying? Like example, Lumumba Shakur, he was a well-known gang leader. You know what I'm saying? In New York City. So Bunchy Carter in LA, he was a well-known street gang leader. You know what I'm saying? Before he made that transformation. You know what I'm saying? That's the key. The key is transformation. All those individuals you name, all those are examples of what we call transformation, transforming that criminal mentality into a revolutionary mentality. And all those individuals are examples of that. George,
I think he will be back.
Oh, he'll be back.
Notice how every single time someone starts talking about something important, they disappear, Donovan.
Oh, and then it takes me out too because it's like you don't need you listening to this. You don't need
unless his phone died or something. That's crazy. Y'all, you see how every single time that remember, y'all, this happens every single live stream. I disappear. Donovan disappears. We get a great guest. Haki disappears.
Because they know they talking about real stuff over here. They
talking about real stuff, and people disappear.
Right.
They understand that we putting things together that we shouldn't be. We publish articles that shouldn't be published. Mind you, I didn't know about this program until Haki brought it up in the article. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, but wait, this sounds a lot like, and there it is. It's those light bulb moments that they want to prevent, and so continue. I know you were talking about them folks. Now I know you're talking about folks that not having PhD. I was going to say there are folks with PhDs. There are doctors.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, no doubt.
Professors that won't even try and do this sort of thing. They will stay at their ivory towers. It's a nice little paycheck. Like,
and to add on to your point, man, and that's what, to be honest with you, bro, that's where the movement failing at. That's where it's failing at. Like, we keep talking about all this organizing this, that, and the third, but you won't even go into your housing projects in your community. You won't go into the lowest element of your community and try to organize those brothers and sisters, but you will stay far away from that and point your finger at them and tell them what they need to do. How you gonna tell them what they need to do, and you scared to even take your ass into the projects and try to show them what to do? You see what I'm saying? So I have to be honest with you, because like I said earlier, a few minutes ago, like, I come from that. I know what that's like. You know what I'm saying? So when I be seeing cats out here talking about they doing this, they're organizing this, they doing grassroots work, you know what I'm saying? Bro, I don't never see y'all in the projects. I never see y'all in the ghettos, you know what I'm saying? Trying to organize these young brothers and sisters and these families in the community. And the thing about it, what's crazy about it, is that these families and these brothers and sisters in those type of conditions, they looking for this shit. It ain't like they ain't looking for it. People try to portray that they not looking for it, but no, they're looking for it. And I know this off experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're looking for it, but it's just not enough of us. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna just throw this out. I even have a little critique about that within the New African Independence Movement. It's a lot of quadres and sections of the New African Independence Movement that's not going into the ghettos. This is why they don't know about the Republic of New Africa. This is why they don't know that they're a nation. You see what I'm saying? Of people that's captured, you know what I'm saying, oppressed nations of peoples, because we don't do enough of the job of what those elders that came before us in the New African Independent Movement. They're not going into the projects. They're not going into the lower levels of the community and organizing the lumpen proletariat. The Black Panther Party would not exist without the ghetto. People gotta keep that in mind. They think the Black Panther Party are some cats who just came out of college or some shit, or they just popped up out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Intelligent people. You see what I'm saying? That's not true. That's not how the story began. That's not where those individuals come from. You know what I'm saying? They come from the worstest conditions in the community. That's why they were so powerful. Once they finally got this science, because it's a science. Once they got it scientific, and they got their conscience to a scientific level to be able to, do this analysis of their conditions in the community, that's why they became so powerful in their organizing. So I tell people off bat, when you're trying to start organizations or you're trying to join a movement, if that organization and movement is not in the ghetto, not in the projects, don't fuck with it. You know what I'm saying? Because you're gonna be wasting your time and your skills on an organization that ain't really doing nothing. They just talking about it. You see what I'm saying? And the potential, you gotta remember, the potential is with the oppressed. You know what I'm saying? It's not with the other side. The potential of the revolution and the potential of our national liberation is right there in that ghetto.
That's real. And then what's interesting too is, like, being in Philly, there are so many different sectors of organizing, and I've noticed with these, it's and I hate to say it, not that I hate to say it, it's these white kids who they discovered, like, Marxism, and
you're not gonna hate to say that. You don't hate that. Nah, stir the pot.
Yeah, no, speak on it.
I was gonna say, they be coming into North Philly with their little, how they say in I mind you, in the APSP we have newspapers. Rebuild Collective got newspaper. A lot of the different groups got, but it's the white tribes. They got their little newspaper, and they're trying to be like, have you ever thought about organizing? And it's like, bro, you cannot approach no Tyrone in the hood with that spiel.
Nah.
They be afraid to talk to Tyrone in the hood too, especially Tyrone if he got like a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, he got a do-rag on. That little white boy is not going to approach no brother in the street.
Never.
He'll approach a Tammy in the university classroom though. That's the thing. Right. And I'm not even saying like, look, because we'll have our W.E.B. Du Bois's. You will have a Dr. Osami Burton, Dr. Huey Newton, Dr. Sharice Burton Stelly, or a Dr. Jared Ball. I'm not saying that they don't exist because they do. But they're an anomaly. The exceptions don't. If we gonna apply Dr. Ball's analysis, the exceptions don't make the rule. Yes, you will find those specks of university professors who are down there talking to the people. You might even find yourself a Mark Lamont Hill who have a platform, but that's not everybody though. That's not the vast majority of professors. That's not the vast majority of people in academia. I'll be pressed to find some of my cohort who will have this wonderful analysis, of hegemony and all of these things. At least enough of an analysis, but I'm not seeing y'all in Southeast DC.
Right.
Where the people, I'm not seeing y'all in Northwest DC. I'm not seeing y'all there. Even like moving to the DMV, I'm always warned about like, hey, you don't want to go to this spot. You don't want to be in these areas. You're like, I know you passionate and things like that, but don't go here. Don't go to Southeast because that's the project. It's the hood, stuff like that. And I'm like, but that's where the people are.
Exactly.
How am I gonna know if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing where I'm supposed to be doing it?
Right.
Like it's like if I'm just in academia, if I'm just in the comfort of the university doing this stuff, and that's my big problem with the university too, is that with modern day university activism, mind you, because again, I wasn't around during the Black Power movement, but I was around during the 2020 BLM movement onwards, and the thing that traps, and I've seen this for myself in undergrad, the trap that they get these university students in that they don't talk about is that they will have you think that your activism is 9 months long. It'll be 9 months long, from August all the way to May, June, July, and then the early August before school starts. So about 9 to 10 months. You do activism for about nine and a half, maybe 10 months, depending on where you're at. And then you go home and you kick back and you relax and you do your readings and you take your breaks. You watch your favorite shows. You watch your little Andor and stuff like that, even though he's supposed to be boycotting Disney. You watch your little Andor. You got your shows, your little First Media with all the I don't want to say radical, but all the social issues. They talk about them in the show. They'll probably be surface level, but they'll talk about them in the show. All these issues that you talk about in real life, you'll be like, oh my God, shoot, you'll watch your One Piece. I love One Piece. I'm over 700 episodes in. I'm okay right here. I got some catching up to do, but I'd be damned if I don't talk about how the characters of One Piece, they're pirates. I think people forgot they're pirates. They're outlaws. A lot of folks
I was gonna say, wait a minute. I was gonna say we're super Gen Z'd out. I was gonna say, Haki, do you know what One Piece is?
Yeah, I know what that. Yeah, I know what that is.
I trust in Haki.
One thing, I'm topped in. I'm topped in across the board.
Been around since the 90s.
Yeah, I'm topped in.
But you see what I'm getting at, though. Like
No, I get it. No, I totally get it. I totally get it.
And then when school comes back in, back to organizing.
Yes.
We got a 2-3 month break. Now we back to it. We gonna organize. We gonna have all these events. We gonna set up our tables. When they have the RSOs come in all over campus, we gonna set our table and we're gonna talk our talk. We gonna have y'all join the movement, stuff like that. Meanwhile, the university, while you had 2 and 3 months off to rest, the universities had 2 to 3 months off to prepare for y'all to come back and try to start stuff again. They just sent some more money to the university police. They just updated technology. They might have got in touch with Lockheed Martin or Raytheon, depending on what university you're in, and they're just like,
we saw
"Hey,
that with the Palestine protests on the campuses."
Exactly. They saw how many students were doing this. They saw that with Palestine. They saw that with 2020. They saw that in 2014, and they had to make a couple phone calls to make sure that doesn't happen again. While y'all was sitting back and taking a break, while y'all was leaving the campus, they rely on that stuff. They rely on the fact that you don't live in the community and that you leave every single month. I'm not saying I'm perfect at this either. That was me for quite a long time. Even though I was from the area of the university, I took a break. I was trying to chillax. I was trying to hang out with friends. I was trying to talk to folks. I was trying to just be a regular person for those few months or work if I had to. And the university knew that we were going to take that break, so they took advantage. They were like, okay, so let's see what they did there. They had a successful rally this time. They had political education here. To use my alma mater as an example, let's ban speakers. To anybody who's from Illinois State University, that they banned certain mic equipment from being used in certain parts of the campus. They wanted to prevent certain organizational efforts from happening at certain parts of the campus at certain times. I think you couldn't use a mic or you couldn't do something by like 3 o'clock p.m. Can't do that. No, but they prepared that. I didn't realize this, and they're preparing. They're getting ready for us right here. Like as soon as I moved to the DMV, I hear a story. My first semester here, grad school. They're like, "Oh, did you hear those SJP students? They got their house raided." I'm like, "Seriously? Yeah, they got their house raided by the FBI because of the stuff that they're doing." Like, mind you, about every school in the DMV, good buddy with the Lockheeds and the Raytheons of the Raytheons. Man, shoot, it's only a metro ride from me, and you go to like Lockheed Martin's headquarters. Went to BlurCon last year. The first thing I saw, Lockheed Martin. I'm like, oh. Ooh.
I was gonna say, because I was gonna say where the stream is, we're getting close to closing out. I was gonna say the other thing I want to talk about, back to Shaka. I wanted to talk about, and I have yet to read this. I'm embarrassed because I was talking right before they released Shaka's book. I was telling Haki, I was like, yeah, let me know when the book comes out. I'm gonna get it. I'm ashamed to say I still haven't gotten Manifestations of Thought When the Dragon Comes, but I wanted Haki to talk a little bit about like any updates on Shaka's case, how we can support Shaka, and then definitely, of course, the book, which I just put the link to in the stream for anyone who might want to purchase it or buy it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, the latest update on Shaka right now is that from what he told me the other day, they're about to lower his level, because he was I think he was like at level 4. I think they're about to lower him down to like level 3 or something like that, to where he can be moved more closer back to the area where I live at it in Virginia. So they're going to move him more closer to where I'm at, so we can start to visit him again. So that was one of the things that he wanted to put out there, that he most likely going to finally get out of River North, which he should never been in River North, because he got a lawsuit out against the guards, one of the particular guards at River North that assaulted him a few years ago when he first got transferred to River North. He has a lawsuit on a few of those correctional officers. So it's a conflict of interest of him even being in River North right now. You know what I'm saying? So we happy about that. But he got a little health issues going on, because he just had a knee surgery. So he's trying to get the rehabilitation straight with his knee surgery and stuff like that. He's trying to get that taken care of. He's also having issues with his property. He got most of his property back after he went through the surgery, because when he had the surgery, when he came back, he noticed a lot of his stuff was missing, and they wasn't trying to get a lot of his stuff to him, like his political stuff, his manuals, his studies and books, and important papers and pictures of his family and all this type of stuff. So You know, it was a hard fight trying to get that back. So he got a lot of that back, but he still hasn't, you know, they took his tablet privileges. So, you know, he won't be having a tablet no time soon. So that's he still want us to agitate and, you know, organize about trying to get his tablet back because for some reason they trumped up some bull crap saying that he had two tablets and he never had two tablets. It was just tablets that they gave him because he had demanded his tablet back. So they tried to use that against him to try to, you know, punish him, you know, because that's all they do is try to punish the prisoners and stuff like that. But he's doing good. He's doing good and stuff like that. He's just happy about the documentary. The documentary is out across enemy lines. You can check that out on YouTube. Like you just said, the book is out, Manifestations of Thought. Man, I recommend that highly to everybody. So you can you know, go into the mind of Shaka. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the most important thing. To learn about his politics. You know what I'm saying? Learn about the New African Independence Movement, the Republic of New Africa. All these things are in the book. Our connection to the Palestine movement, the Congo, Sudan. It's a lot of that information within inside the book and stuff like that. So I recommend people highly get that manifestation of thought when the dragon, you know, comes and stuff like that, and add it to your library and study it and stuff like that. But you can write them. You know what I'm saying? Go to his website, shakashakur.org. All the steps, all the things you can do to help him is on the website, shakashakur.org. It's a petition on there. That's one of the things we really want people to galvanize around is the petition. If you know family members, friends, share that petition with your family and friends, your comrades, your organizations, whatever movement or organization you're in, share that petition because this petition only got like I think like it's like 4,000 something signatures. That's not enough. That's a disappointment at this point, and stuff like that. So we want people to go to the website, sign the petition. There's also a digital letter writing format on there as well, where you can just write a simple letter to the parole, you know, the parole board. I think it's connected to the interstate compact contract as well. But it's sending it to like you know, senators, governmental officials and stuff like that. So you can just sign that and send it by the tap of a button, and you can send a letter to the people that we trying to make noise around to try to get Shaka back to Indiana, or possibly get him a pardon, get him out of prison and stuff like that. And the most important part, his legal case. If you want to donate to his legal case, go to shakashakur.org because that's the phase we're in right now, is trying to get him the proper legal team so we can, begin to try to get this man back home to Indiana and try to get these people to abolish that interstate compact contract or either cancel it. We're trying to get them to cancel the interstate compact contract that they got on Shaka at this point so he can get shipped back home. Because people got to realize his case is not in Virginia. A lot of people get that confused. It's like, no, he was sent here from where his case happened and where he can fight his case at. See, that's what they do to try to neutralize you and try to, keep you in prison. Is to send you into political exile, to send you into exile so you cannot have the benefits to fight your case. So that's why the call right now is to get him back to Indiana. Like that's the most simplest step that we can do at this point outside of getting him out of prison, period, is getting him back to Indiana so his legal team can fight his case on Indiana soil because he should not be in Virginia.
Solidarity.
I was gonna say that's I'm sorry,
I was
Donovan.
just saying solidarity with Shaka Shakur and all political prisoners. Mia, we talked about Cindy Yako-Koli. I think Cindy Yako-Koli was freed. I want to say
yes, he's free.
They got freed recently, but no, solidarity to all.
Yeah, you got a couple of the Conrad elders that still out there. Names that I throw out there. One specifically, political prisoner that I want to definitely mention. And his birthday is coming up at the not at the end of the month, but kind of like an end of the month. I think it's like February 19th. Kamal Siddiqui. Go to Kamal Siddiqui's website and find out how you can help with his case. Because matter of fact, he's I wouldn't say he's directly impacted by the interstate compact contract, but he's kinda connected to the interstate compact contract because he's from New York City. He's in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, even though the case took place in Atlanta, Georgia, is why they shipped him there. But at the same time, that's still kind of like exile because he's from New York. You know what I'm saying? Like all these charges that he was fighting began in New York City. You know what I'm saying? It's just happened that he got set up in Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? And they tried to, trump up some charges on him back in Atlanta. So Kamal Siddiqui, man, spread awareness around his name because that and people that don't know who he is, that's Asada Shakur's father. That's Kakuya's daddy. You know what I'm saying? And one of the reasons he's still captured is the fact that he did not snitch on Asada Shakur's whereabouts, and they tried to get that out of him. He refused. He still refused all the way up until she transitioned to the ancestors. And so they just intentionally is keeping this man incarcerated because they don't like him and they just want to, torture him and terrorize him because he was associated and related to Asada's.
I was gonna say that makes everything we talked about really full 360 because Donovan, right before you caught up, we were talking about revolutionary love and Valentine's Day is coming up on Saturday. And that's like what is more that's one of the hardest things someone would have to do, but that is the epitome of love. Like his life his freedom is on the line and he like absolutely refused to give up someone he cared about. And I mean, what more could you really would you really ask for of someone that does something like that?
Exactly.
Also to keep in mind too that the same country, Cuba, that helped keep Asada Shakur safe is actively being attacked by the empire.
Yes.
We already did the live stream about Venezuela and how they kidnapped Maduro and his wife. They're taking over the oil of Venezuela. And guess who was one of Venezuela's main allies, main contributors, main consumers of that oil? That was Cuba. Now the Cuban economy is in crisis because not we, because we don't identify with the empire, but the U.S. empire has actively held control of Venezuelan oil for at least, I want to say, at the very least a few weeks. But now Cuba's feeling the ramifications. They had to shut down flights recently because of that as well. So please do everything you can to support Cuba. Don't believe everything you hear. As Tupac said, real lies, real lies. Kind of get into what you were saying earlier. Because if you base revolution on PTAs one battle after another, you think that snitches were normal.
Right.
I came out of that movie, somebody said, oh, this is realistic. You know what I'm saying? It's a realistic picture of revolution. Because people sometimes they sell out their own homies. I'm wearing a Asada Shakur shirt. I'm like, I don't know. I think the woman on my shirt who just passed away, like right before the movie came out, would say otherwise. And it's clear that the father of her child would also disagree with that notion.
Right.
We have two real-world examples of this whole snitching thing being an anomaly to the struggle.
Right.
Right. But I was going to say, I don't know if I have anything else to close this out, except that we, of course, at Iansá and everywhere, free all political prisoners. The land by any means necessary. And I was going to say, Donovan, do you have any words to take us out before we end the stream?
Nah, really, no compromise, no retreats. Probably the only thing I'd say.
That's true. Haki, do you have anything to say before we end the stream?
Yeah, free the land.
Free the land. And thanks for joining us.
No, thank y'all, man. I appreciate it. Having the opportunity, to grace this platform. Keep doing the good work. Keep pushing the media, and free the land.
Free the land. And then the last thing I'll say is, if you haven't checked out Haki's article about the Interstate Compact Contract Agreement, it is on Iansá's website, and it is our highest read article of the week. So if you haven't read it, you definitely need to go and do it. And this is crucial information. And as Donovan said, anyone could become a political prisoner. So that's
all you have to do is dissent. All you have to do is dissent. You ain't even got to be a radical.
Right.
Dr. King doesn't officially a socialist by the time he made the letter from Birmingham jail. He just wanted civil rights, and they made him a political prisoner for it.
Yeah, that's important. You know, I'm gonna just add on to that's important for a lot of you young individuals out here that's joining organizations. Make sure when you know before you join that organization, make sure they have a program that's centered on political prisoners, man, because you got a lot of organizations that are out here faking and trying to take on legacies and trying to take up, you know, space, and they're not even fighting for freedom fighters. You know what I'm saying? They're not even fighting for the elders that's incarcerated. So that's a red flag. If you out here looking for an organization to join and they don't talk about political prisoners, they don't have no program for political prisoners, don't join that shit. That shit is a front. It's a facade. It's not revolutionary. It's counter-revolutionary. Like if they not, you know, advocating for our elders that's captured, that's in exile, don't join that shit. Keep it moving.
Come on, DSA, you got a chance to be radical now.
I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you.
Why DSAs?
I'm extending the olive branch.
Oh yeah, extended invitation.
I'm extending to all y'all. Get y'all shit right, man.
Yeah. With that, I guess I'll end the stream. Thanks to everyone. But we're gonna definitely have Haki back. Haki low key like Iansá's unofficial historian person. So like I want to incorporate you more into the magazine, comrade. Like we need.
Oh, no doubt. No, like I said, like I told you, man, I'm whatever, man. I'm down for whatever. Whatever you trying to do with it, I'm gonna support it, and I'm gonna do what I can. You know what I'm saying? That's all I can say. You know what I mean? I fit in where I fit in at, and you know what I mean? Like I said, because we need more of this type of media, you know what I mean, to facilitate what we trying to do, and that's free the land, that's free the people. You feel me? So whatever it is, I'm here. I'm here.
All right. But yeah, we'll end the stream. But thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll say uhuru and free the land.